Hello and welcome to the Sports-grad podcast, your bite-sized guide to enter the sports industry. And joining me, as per usual, is the scientific Reuben Williams. How are you, mate?
G'day, Ryan. I'm doing well. Thank you very much. I'm not the most scientific person in the world. I think I realised when sport management rather than sports science was for me when I got a 3 out of 20 on a practical exam at Deakin University. I think it was human structure and function. We had to go around the room and put a label on all these different parts of the body, and I just had no idea. And that's when I was like, I think I'm quickly realizing what I'm good and what I'm not so good at.
Yeah, I was horrific at that. I had I think it was a sports science unit in my sports management course. And labelling body parts just wasn't for me. Couldn't quite remember them that well. So I knew from that point forward it was sports management for me.
It gave me a good appreciation of that space. So can talk a little bit of shop, but found strength in other areas.
You've got enough there to just have a simple conversation, but
enough to do things like this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Very good. Well, let's get cracking because this episode has a lot of sports science involved, which is very exciting. I'm Ryan Walker, he's Reuben Williams, and we are two mates who met at Cricket Australia, and now we help people find their own dream job through this very podcast and our online community. If you want to follow us, head over to LinkedIn, or even better, if you want to connect with us and hundreds of others working in sport, jump into the Sports-grad community.
And I've got a quick shout out to one of our Sports-grad community members, Ryan. His name is Clayton Henderson. He's been around for over a year. He's one of our most beloved members, arrives on every single webinar. Everyone knows his name. And he's just got a brand new job at Cricket Victoria in the membership experience and sales team as one of the officers there. And he's found his dream job. He loves his cricket. He plays every single weekend. He's played in the UK. So for him to be involved at Cricket Victoria is an absolute dream come true.
Yeah.
If you want to hear about how Clayton got this job and some of the tools and tactics that he implemented along the way, we actually got Clayton in for a podcast a few episodes back. Solo pod. It was just myself and Clayton.
He sat in this very seat.
He sat in that seat and he asked me, Reuben, what should I write in my cover letter? What should I write in my resume? How should I interview? And I career coached him through the whole thing. So if you want to have a listen to Clayton's job hunting approach, go back to episode 183. But if you do want to find your dream job in sport and start getting paid to do what you love, then jump into the Sports-grad community because you can find a whole host of like-minded people and incredible jobs in sport in there.
Absolutely, Rubes. A quick message from our good friends at Deakin University. Did you know that Deakin is the #1 ranked sports science school in the world? So I'm surprised you got 3 out of 20, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I think that's really a reflection on me.
It's completely on you, I would have thought. At Deakin, you don't just learn about the future of sport. You can access it with state-of-the-art facilities, cutting-edge research, and advanced technology all at your fingertips. As an international leader in sports education, Deakin prepares you to shape the sports industry of tomorrow. Get the real-world experience you need to join the growing list of Deakin alumni in super exciting positions across the sports industry. So check out their website for all the information you need.
Absolutely. Now, we've got one of the products of the #1 sports science school in the world on the show today. His name's Sam Jospeh. He's done a Bachelor of Exercise Science up in Queensland before he came to Deakin University to do a Masters of Applied Sports Science. And then a couple of the key experiences he had along the way to get to the job he is in now involved an internship at the Queensland Reds, one of the Super Rugby teams up north, another strength and conditioning coaching role at the Wynnum Manly Seagulls, and now he works as a sports scientist at VALD, who are one of the leading health tech providers in the world. Their machines are incredible.
Yeah.
They get used by the likes of the EPL and the NBA.
NHL
as well. So the elite of the elite clubs around the world are tapping VALD on the shoulder to say, hey, give us some of your equipment. So what I loved about Sam is the way that he's worked up to now consult for these NBA teams, for these EPL teams, on how they can use VALD's equipment. I think his career journey is incredible. If you're in that sports science space and not sure what to do, have a listen to Sam and the way that he's gone about getting to where he is now.
Yeah, I loved how he spoke about that consulting space almost. It was very, very cool. I loved hearing about just the vital skills and experiences that you need to be a sports scientist in health tech today. You know, it's far beyond what I thought it would be. And, he sort of spoke a little bit about that. But there's this whole range of different skills that you need, bits of experience along the way that all contribute to being in this space. So very cool to hear.
Yeah, he spoke a lot about why it's important to be a generalist rather than a specialist, and you'll hear him talk more about that later. But one of the really practical things he also shared was how you can start to get that wide variety of experience if you're just in a single internship. So how to approach your manager to get more opportunities in other areas so that you're not just pigeonholed into one spot and end up with a very specific skill set. You want to be broad. So Sam tells you how you can do that.
Fantastic. Well, let's get cracking. Grab a pen, enjoy this chat with Sam Jospeh. Sam, welcome to the Sports Grad podcast.
Thanks, guys. Thanks very much for having me.
Sam, our pleasure, mate. Mate, I've been scrolling through your LinkedIn profile and I've just seen all these incredible experiences one after the other. Is there any particular one role that you were most excited to receive an offer for?
Oh, mate, I think I think at the time they're all special because you work so hard to get somewhere, or it's the first kind of step. I'm not sure there's one that really sticks out, to be honest. You always get a bit of recency bias and you say, this is great. But but each time, I want to go back through it. Winner Manly was a great first place to be, and then the Reds is a great placement. VALD is a phenomenal place to work for where I'm currently at. The Firebird, similar kind of thing. QT Netball, same thing. So I think, to be fair, I don't think I could really say which one is the best, just because they all have such great memories and a very integral part of kind of where I've come from and where I've got to now, I think.
Well, let's focus on your current position at VALD, where you're a sports scientist. Do you remember where you were the day that you got offered that role and how you reacted?
Very funny story on this one. So, fortunately, I'm the CEO, Laurie, who I'm good friends with. He actually knows my brother from various entrepreneurship things up in Queensland where we're based. And I'd met him a few times around the place, been to a launch at VALD, for their HQ back in 2019, so a fair while ago. And I'd met him at ASCA conferences and everything. So it was kind of it wasn't really one of those ones where you go through the standard process and apply for it like it happens, some other jobs. It was just one of those ones, and I think you guys have seen it all the time, where it just happened to be the right place, right time. And he was just like, mate, how would you like to come work for us? And I'm just like, I'd never actually really thought about that, to be honest. And then I let it sit for a bit, let it sit. And then eventually, I think it was probably around May 2020, COVID was really starting to get a grip. And I was just kind of I need something different here. COVID's hitting, I'm not sure I can do my current job for an extra 1, 2, 3 years, as it almost got close to be. And so I said, look, actually, mate, I probably would like to work for you. And he goes, all right, cool. So he said, just send me an email and tell me when you want to start and we'll go from there. I'm like, this is pretty good. I like this. This is way better than interviewing all the time. 42 different processes.
So it was literally pick your start date and you're in.
Wow.
Yeah, there was a little in between just to make sure it was all good. But I think what we've done at VALD is Laurie's really, really good at hiring good people, I think, and just knowing the right person for the job. And I was fortunate to be, fortunately, the person that he thought was going to fit pretty nicely. It's been a great 2 and a bit years so far. And definitely been challenging in some respects, but I've learned. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to come here and learn. It's been phenomenal for learning, which I think has been really, really good for me.
Jeez, it's always good to be handpicked.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Absolutely.
You know someone, straight in you go. No worries. But it sounds awesome. Sam, so sports scientist, what does a typical day look like for you?
Oh, that's again a great question. I think a typical day for me could be anything. So my job particularly as a sports scientist. So what I'm paid to do is so any current people that work with VALD, people looking to work with VALD, I'll go out to them, help them with our systems, and just help them. Whatever question is, it might be hey, what does this metric mean on force decks, or or as big as how do I implement this piece of technology within my physical performance program, or in a more performance sport world, or even to now at VALD, we've got a fairly decent sized grab of allied health as well. So speaking to a physiotherapist and saying, they're like, what does this metric mean for my patients that I see 3 times a week with lower back pain? It might be spending 20 minutes with them explaining how to kind of position this within their healthcare plan kind of thing. So it really could be anything every day, which is the really cool part about it. Like some days it might just be answering, 10 to 15 emails about some more technical stuff, fixing some things, and then jumping on a few calls and talking about that. Or on the other hand, it might be spending the best part of the whole day with some people training a staff of 20 or 30 to make sure they're really confident on our systems, to make sure they get the best value out of it. So it really could honestly be anything at any point in time. And the cool thing too is you go into inner sanctums of these great sporting clubs around the world. And I'm pretty fortunate. I live and work in Australia, so I've copped most of the eastern seaboard, and I haven't been to Perth, unfortunately, yet. So walking into some great footy clubs or just academies of sport and seeing how they run, how they operate, speaking to all kinds of practitioners and people, and just getting to, more or less get paid to talk to them, which is pretty cool, I think.
Who are some of the clubs around the world that you get to talk to?
Good question. Probably depends on your domain here. Like I could probably ask you a sport. There's been some pretty cool ones. Like I've spoken to some NHL teams. It's been pretty fun. Some NBA teams. A couple in the EPL as well, which has been pretty cool.
Are you allowed to say which NBA and EPL teams?
Unfortunately not.
Okay.
No, I can't say that. But yeah, they're pretty big. They're relatively big. And you kind of speak to them and just go, actually, these are. You meet they're regular people, and they're just mostly really good humans as well, and they just want to get better at their job. And that's really fun to have a conversation with someone to say, and it's kind of humbling too when someone comes to you from one of these organisations and says, "Hey, a bit more about this than me. Can you tell me what this is?" And I just kind of go, "Nah, no way. You know way more than me. There's no way in hell." But then you kind of realise and go, okay, you start talking about it, and then it's just a matter of just helping them get to where they need to be. And then hopefully that provides a lot of information and help for them as they move forward with their teams and organisations.
Yeah. And for those who have never heard of VALD before, do you want to talk a bit about what they offer and what sort of things you're having conversations about with the EPL and NBA teams?
Yeah, cool. So VALD is a sport and health tech company. So we primarily specialise in musculoskeletal assessment. And we kind of rose from the Nord board, which measured hamstring strength back in 2014, 15, 16. And since then, we've branched out into force plates with Force X, handheld dynamometry with Dynamo. We even do movement tracking with Human Track and Force X Vision now. So we've got a fairly broad range of movements, but our underlying premise is bringing lab-based technology to the field. So typically taking stuff that would take 6, 12, 24 hours or up to 6 weeks with Force X case previously. You can do a test, have the information inside 30 seconds, so you can go back to your physio room, your gym or whatever it is, and then understand exactly what you need to do. And generally it'll confirm what you already know, but it just helps engage who you're training a lot better. And it provides, definite information to say, hey, that's exactly what's happening. Now I'm going to go ahead and do this as well. So we started primarily in professional sport, and we still are heavily linked with sport. We do it pretty much every day. But now we've got a bit more of a focus as well towards the allied health market, because this stuff, as you guys would know, I'm sure everyone's had a sore lower back, and we don't know why it's hurting. Athletes every day know exactly what they get. They know their body pretty well, whereas general people like you and me, we don't. So the more we can understand and learn, the better. So that's pretty much what VALD does, and we're an Australian company based in Brisbane, but we have offices around the world, and we're starting to get fairly large as well.
Nice. When you say Nord board, I get nervous because in my footy career, I was always told to do Nordics at the end of training. Do your 3 sets of 10. I always used to maybe just give them a miss, and I think that's why I keep doing hamstrings.
That's why I'm no longer playing.
Yeah, that's why I don't play anymore. But interesting question. Do you work with individual athletes as well as practitioners, or is it very much for your sports science team to go and implement?
Yeah, we try and take the position of we're here to help. We don't want to take, because I know initially people kind of went, we don't know whether we want this kind of technology in, but it became a piece for us to say, hey, we're not here to take anyone's job. We're here to help you out and make sure that you guys look good and you're doing your job really, really well. So we're probably not directly with athletes. We may come in and help with a testing session just to make sure everything runs well, or provide some, expert insight as to hey, I've got this result. What do you think it means? Can you confirm for me? So yeah, we're probably not hands-on with athletes too much. We'll definitely, if we're in the gym with them, we'll say good day, have a chat to them, which is pretty cool, pretty fun. But yeah, not too much hands-on with athletes, because usually most places that have our stuff, they're the ones that are doing it, and we're just there to make their life easier.
So you kind of provide the technology and then act as consultants to help them get the most out of it?
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much.
Awesome. Nice. Very cool. Did you expect to be doing this when you were going through uni?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. First year, me at uni is going, what is a cell and how can I deal with it? But no, it just speaks to the cool version of the world, and you guys would have seen that in your careers as well as you've seen. Like, sport opens up such a great deal of doors for you, and it's just the most different industry I think is around, because the opportunities you get and the fact that you can, in most jobs, get paid to watch sport is an absolute joke, and that's so good.
I love that. It's an absolute joke that we get paid to watch sport.
Yeah, I mean, if you told me that in grade 2, I'd be like, yeah, absolutely, sign me up, and that's exactly what happened. But yeah, I think looking back at uni, I don't think you can kind of really map out as to what's going to happen, particularly in a COVID world. But the fact you can be as close to these people we see on TV every day and go, these guys are superstars, or like so good at controlling their body or playing their sport, is really, really cool.
Well, let's dive into how you got to this cool role that you're in now, because it sounded like getting this particular job, you had it a bit your way and had the connection in, but going way back at the start, you didn't have it your way at all. Do you want to tell us some of the steps that you took to get to where you are?
No way. I kind of feel like it was, like just getting battered by the baseball bat at the pinata for a while there. But no, so I was at uni again. Like, I don't think I stood out uni-wise. Like, I worked really hard, but it wasn't really kind of getting there. And I know when it came to internships and that kind of stuff and prac placements, and that's probably, as an S&C coach primarily, I probably consider myself as, that's kind of where you land from. And I know when I first, because we had to pick our placements, kind of had to email the people, say, hey, can I come in for a chat? Can I interview, kind of thing, and then hopefully get the placement. I got one with the Queensland Reds, which was sick. I was stoked with that. And then growing up in Brisbane, the club that everyone loves is the Broncos. And as I loved them since I was 4 or 5, like, I thought that'd be awesome to work there one day. Reached out, and whether I got the wrong email or not, unsure. Just never heard anything back. So always wanted to work cricket as well. Same kind of thing. Probably got the wrong email, but just heard nothing. And then I'm like, oh, well, we've got the Reds. That's pretty cool. And then sure enough, I signed off on the Reds. It was locked in, had a start date for the placement. And then suddenly the Broncos released internships. And I'm just like, oh, you are
timing.
Yeah, timing. So there was that. Like, again, in the end though, great thing for me at the Reds, like, I had a phenomenal internship, did a lot of hands-on stuff, which I needed, because I didn't really know that much back then, as well. But then, of course, finished uni, and then at the Reds, like, I had a phenomenal internship, loved it, thought I did pretty well, but there was just no gigs at the end of it. And then other people got gigs straight out of uni, and I was just kind of like, okay, like, this kind of sucks, kind of thing. And then there's just been, you kind of see people around you kind of start accelerating through, and they're making through the ranks. And I suppose it's a meritorious industry in some ways, but you really have to be in the right place at the right time and know the right people as well. And you do that through a variety of means. But it wasn't falling for me. Missed out on a fair few in that first year out. Eventually got on with St Edmunds, which was great. But again, I knew that person through St Edmunds, the Reds, which again shows that the network and who you know is huge. But yeah, so I know, like, I've applied for, like, I'd hate to look at how many jobs I applied for in that first 9 months out of university. It'd be a lot. And I swear, if I wasn't working as a PT or eating or sleeping, I was genuinely just on the computer writing cover letters, kind of thing. And I suppose it knocks you down, like, every time you get no reply, or no, sorry, you haven't got this job, kind of thing. And it's just like, yeah, it's pretty tough. But it definitely makes you appreciate when you do happen to land one. Okay, this is awesome, and you really try and work hard, because you had to work so hard for it. How
many cover letters do you reckon you wrote in those 9 months?
Oh, it would have been upwards of 40, I think.
Wow.
It would have been a lot, yeah. And of course, back then you customise everything. So you spend a couple of hours on each one, and then you got to check, like, who am I writing this to? And yeah, like, good mistake to learn, but geez, I wish I learned that mistake a lot earlier. And how to write a cover letter.
Yeah. Wow. That's some number. 40 cover letters.
Particularly if you're customising them too. Yeah. Like, we hear of some students who write hundreds, but they're literally just copy-paste jobs every single time.
Yeah. I think there's the balance in that too. Like, you learn, okay, some jobs have similar things, so you kind of go, well, all right, I don't need to change too much of that. But I think it's definitely a skill writing the right cover letter. I think, again, depends on what industry you kind of work with in sport and how much they get read. But, when you realise too, like, later on down the track, that whoever gets the gig is probably the one that's just been there, or the person knows, you almost realise, like, why am I even writing this thing? Like, someone already knows. But an essential thing to know when you're going through it. It definitely does help when you know how to write them a bit easier.
Totally. Let's delve back into your role a little bit more. I've known plenty of people who do exercise sports science courses. We know Deacon absolutely dominates in that area, but keen to understand what are some of those essential skills and experiences you need to pretty much ace your job.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I think Steve Moore said this on a few podcasts ago, and he said that you need to be a generalist now, I think, and I firmly agree with that. I don't really think that you can kind of survive just doing one thing anymore, just because of after COVID, like, you know, as soft caps reduced in, well, particularly in AFL, NRL, Union struggled, everyone, so you kind of get one person doing a few different jobs. So I think the more skills you can kind of offer, yes, you might specialise later on when you're down the track, and that's fine, that's what the role requires, but I think if you've got a handle on everything, at least well enough to work as one. Maybe not excel as the top one because you can't be the best at everything, but the fact that you can be a generalist and understand. So someone comes to me as a sports scientist for VALD and says, hey, I'm doing this program in the gym, they've got this concern, what metrics should I look at on my force plates? I can give them I'm an S&C coach, I can go, yeah, cool, that makes sense. Well, then I might get a question about, say, hey, do you think this GPS metric and this high speed metric relates to this on the North board or whatever it is? I think the fact that you've kind of got a different handle of each thing, like whether it's GPS, pure sports science, S&T, everything kind of within that, you can then provide better information and then get a better result, I think. So I think now you've got to have an ability to go across multiple disciplines. You don't have to be the best. You don't have to be the best person. Like, I will be the first to admit, like, I don't know R and Python and the data science side of where sports science is going. Like, I haven't done it. I don't know much about it. But I'm sure if someone came to me and said, hey, I found this from my analysis, what do you think? Can you interpret for me? I can probably do that. So I think, particularly for young kids coming through in your second year out, it's worth having a few experiences if you can. So, like, you might love S&C, and that's absolutely fine. Like, I love it too, but you've got to make sure you understand how GPS works, what we use the numbers for, because there's probably going to be a time where in your career where you're going to get faced with this, and if you can just go look at it and go, yeah, cool, I know that, sweet, handball or use the information well enough. But if you look at it and just go, I don't really know what to do with that, then you've got to chase your tail for a bit, and you'll learn it eventually, but I think it'll cost you time, and you could have been so efficient. You could have just gone, yep, sweet, that should have taken 2 minutes. Now it's taken you 2 days to catch up on, and you lack a bit of practical experience. So I think the ability to kind of be across everything and experience everything, don't have to do everything and everything everywhere, but you have to kind of challenge yourself with a few ones. You may not like it. Like, I know I tried some performance analysis stuff. I hated it. I didn't really enjoy it. But I now know it, and I know enough of it to kind of appreciate the role and see how it's useful, and then appreciate the information coming out of it too, I think. So I think it's really important just to give everything a crack, see how it is, and you may not like it, that's fine, you don't have to. It's your career, you do what you want, but you need to at least appreciate it as well. And again, I don't think you have to be the smartest person in the world, but just understand enough, push yourself enough, and you'll probably get there okay with enough understanding, and then you can start to really push which area you want to go to, I think. But yeah, you got to be flexible, you got to be malleable, and if you're not, you're probably going to have a real tough time trying to get into sport.
That's right. Excel isn't my strong suit either, so I think I'd struggle in an analyst role as well.
Yeah. Spent a lot of time in Excel, and I can tell you what, there's a lot better programs than that. So you've got to know it. You got to know it.
It's like we think Excel's like the most crazy thing in there. Sam's probably using a little bit, a
few more things,
more technical programming than that.
Exactly right. And for those who are wondering about Steve Moore, he's from the Carlton Footy Club, strength and conditioning coach. If you want to listen to him talking about generalist versus specialist, he's in episode 163. But for you, Sam, for those who are thinking about trying to get a broad range of experiences, can you do this within one internship, or how would you go about getting multiple internships if that's the case that you need to do?
Yeah, I think at the right spot, you can probably get a fair few things. So like if you went to a footy club, probably a pretty good, AFL does it quite well because they have quite a broad high performance team within most of the clubs. I think you get most of the understanding there. But I'd always recommend doing a few different ones because then you get context of what's happening there. So you might go to a footy club and they might be the absolute best in the world at everything, and they've got the best S&Cs, best sports science, best physios, best dietitians, best medics, whatever it is. And then you understand that. And then you go, all right, cool, but I know that that's all easy. Your first job, and then you go somewhere else and go, actually, this is deplorable. Like, they're not doing it this way, they're not doing it this way, and you're kind of stuck in this one little microcosm of what it was like there. And I think that's a dangerous game by saying, hey, we did this here. Doesn't always necessarily mean it's going to be the best thing for here as well, because different people, different contexts, different players, maybe a different sport. So I think it's definitely worth, if you can do a couple and you've got the ability to, go and do it, because you might even go. You don't have to pick a good club and a bad club. That's hard. Like, they might be the best on field, but terrible back end, and vice versa. It's definitely worth doing a couple, because then you get some context. I know at the Reds, I found that like what we were doing was really good, but the club was struggling at the time. Like, money was tight, so we were doing it shoestring wise. Whereas other clubs that I've seen, they've got all the resources in the world, but they just go, because they've got too many resources, they have no person running them as well. So I would recommend, if you can do a couple, definitely do a couple. And I think the way to do that as well, same way you got one, just reach out and say, hey, like, have a bit of a plan. Cool, I'm spending time at the Western Bulldogs for the next 6 months. Maybe try and tee it up in a different sport with, maybe, I don't know, you might go to the Victory, or if you're in Sydney, you might go to the Swans and then go to Western Sydney, something like that. Or even then again, then try and apply it as well. So it's all well and good to learn it and see it as your internship. It's then about applying it later on, because ultimately that's what you're trying to aim to. So once you've learned a bit of it, try and find a job at a semi-pro club or wherever it is, then apply it, and then you go, oh, actually, I now know why that didn't work here. And it wasn't because the person didn't know that you're under, or the person you're working with didn't get it. It was because this happened, or the players hated it, or the coach sucked, or whatever it was. And by getting that context and understanding, then that helps you shape and go, all right, well, I'm in this situation now. I can use this mechanism, or I can use this strategy, and it'll probably work out this way as well. And then you've really become that practitioner. And I think that goes across any field, really, regardless of industry. You've got these different opinions and experiences. You can then start molding what you need to do, and you've seen things before. And this problem you're faced with coming into a new club, knowing no one, or you're in a different country, or whatever it is, you can go, oh, actually, I've got experience here, and here. I can do that. Now I might need to get some help from here as well. So I think, definitely get as many as you can before you have, you don't want to do 50,000 and go, oh, well, you're a professional student. Have a couple, start applying it. When you're applying it, you'll start to really think, okay, I'm pretty happy with this now. I'll back myself in to do most jobs around the place.
It's probably a cultural thing as well, right? Like, if you go to 2 or 3 different sporting clubs, you get to see the culture of each one. It means, when you do lock something in full time, you're not in shock when it's it's different to the places you've done, like your one internship. Good to see how it all happens so that you're not in shock.
Yeah.
Nothing surprises you. You've seen it all before. If
you can take a well-rounded view of the world into any job, I think you're going to be in a much better place.
Yeah. I think that's also why, you don't always have to have like 5 internships all in sport to then get into sport. There's lots of different things that you can do out there that give you experience, so that when you do jump into sport, you've got a different perspective.
Yeah,
so it's just another thing to add.
Sam, what about if you're in one particular internship and you wanted to dive into another area? Say you're in strength conditioning, but you've got interest in nutrition and you want to spend some time there. Have you ever had to ask for opportunities in another area? And if so, how would you go about it?
Ooh, that's a really good one, actually. I personally haven't. I've been I'm not straight now with what I've kind of wanted to do. I've always kind of had a pretty good understanding. But I think it's just worth doing a bit of research yourself and understanding, okay, like, you see nutrition being done at the footy club or whatever it is, or wherever you are. Like, I don't think it's worth just, like, you probably get more information firstly if you just do a bit of research yourself, see what the actual field entails. So a quick Google search will tell you enough, I would think. Read a couple of papers, that kind of thing, and just maybe, everyone's got videos online of what their nutritionist, psychologist, dietitian does, or whatever it is. Do a bit of research yourself, and then if you still like it, like, you might find you go, actually, no, I'm off this. That was me in sports psychology. I thought that was it in first year of uni. Did psychology, first year psychology, and went, no, this is not it. I'm not here. Like, do a bit of research yourself, see it, and if you still want to look at it, then go reach out to someone that you may know or you may not know, and then same kind of thing. Hey, look, I'm a so-and-so, I do this here. Really interested in nutrition. Can I buy you a coffee and have a chat about it as well? Now, I don't drink coffee, so I've burnt myself a few times saying, hey, actually, I don't drink coffee. I'll have a Coke Zero here and I'll get you a coffee. But then, offer them a coffee so that, they get a coffee as well. So they're probably not going to say no to that. Make it work on their time. go to the effort, turn up on time, and then just have some questions prepared to say, hey, like, what does it look like for you? And if you have some more direct questions, you'll probably generally find out what you want to do. Because if you go in completely blind, you go, oh yeah, what is your day like? And they're just like, well, what do you want to know? But if you can say, hey, I've watched this, I've seen this, how do you go with this situation? Or like, do you see this a lot? And then you can ask a more detailed question. Then you actually truly understand, okay, this may or may not be for me, depending on the outcome of those answers. But yeah, that's probably the way I'd approach it, I think. And that would work, I think, across most disciplines. But the more you can do by yourself, when you come in with a higher bar yourself, you can hit the ground running a bit faster, be a bit more useful, a bit faster, along with, all right, I tried, didn't like it, cool, I now know, happy with that.
Yeah, that's great. I think the more specific you can be, the easier you make it for the other person to get something out of it too. And we, to try and help with that, we created this little cheat sheet template called the Networker, which we give to all our members so they can like print it out and literally write down essentially, why am I here? What's the other person doing? What can they get out of this conversation? What do I want out of it? And then they can lead a productive coffee off the back of that template that they've created for themselves.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think, it's kind of like you're not going to be the grade 10, grade 11 kid coming in on work placement. Like, you're the university educated person that's actually got a pretty good idea of what they're doing. They just need a little bit of guidance to kind of see where they want to go.
How's does everybody says, oh, we'll get a coffee. It's like, well, that's just one drink. It should be, do you want to go grab a drink? But then it's like, oh, we assume it's an alcoholic drink. It's tough out there.
You might get to the truth a bit faster there, possibly.
Yeah, it's tough for our non-coffee drinkers out there, isn't it?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. Well, let's catch up, might be the phrasing there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Good point.
Yeah.
Speaking of people who have guided you, or guiding people in general, who are some of the people that have helped you along your journey?
Probably had I have and I haven't in some ways. So I think a lot, particularly in S&C realm, like you'll find a lot of people that have this mentor that they've been with a long time. I probably don't consider myself to have that person per se in mind. I probably had a bit of a different route to it. So I know back in high school, I was a terrible athlete, don't get me wrong, I was going nowhere. But in primarily the contact sports that I played, I was the biggest kid growing up, so I kind of attached my self-worth to how well I did in sport. And then so come grade 11, grade 12, last couple of years of high school, I was reasonably smart. I wasn't killing it though, by any stretch of the means. Had some injuries, and then I was just playing PE. I was in PE one day playing European handball. Shoulder dislocated again for what was like the 30,000th time. I forget how many. Had to stop, and my PE teacher was just like, "Mate, you can't keep doing this. You need to have a think about like what's actually happening here." And he had previously been through injury stuff himself. Again, a way better athlete than me, but that just really helped me dissociate what I was trying to do in my self-worth. So I attached everything to, if I played cricket well on the weekend, I came to school the next day, like I was on it. Same thing for footy or whatever it was. But he told me that, hey, there's more to life than this. And particularly coming to university when you have this massive culture shock, a massive life shock about everything's different. The very, very small fish in the massive world there is. You get this now. And I think that helped. It took me a long time to get it, and to be honest, I'm still going through that, making sure that I'm not tying myself to whatever I'm doing day to day. Like, you're a person first, and what you do in work is second, definitely. So that was probably the big one for mine. I looked to him a fair bit in my grade 11 and 12 years to understand that, okay, it's not all about that. Like, you've got to have other things to it. So that was probably like my first probably experience, like that mental relationship type thing. And then since then, I suppose I have a lot of people that I know that I can ask a question of, just because, and I try and, I'd rather be a mate with them first. Like, I trust a mate. I don't go to people and say, hey, I really want to form not a secretive relationship in terms of like, I want understanding, but it's more just like, I don't want to use you for what you know. Like, I would rather be your mate first and go, if I can be a mate with them, I'm probably going to trust them with your opinions, or at least I understand where they're coming from. Whereas if I just randomly say, hey, certain person, a certain job, what do you think here? One, they have no context of me. If they're my mate, they probably do have it, and they can understand. I think, if they can give you advice, then it's genuinely warranted advice as well. So I'm pretty fortunate now. I've got a fair few people that I know quite well personally. I know who they are. I can have a drink with them, I can have a beer with them, have a coffee with them if they want to drink coffee. I can, and just have a chat and say, hey, I've got this problem, what do you think, as well. So additionally too, I think that's really given me as well a bit of context. Like, I'm not going to the same person for everything. So one probably the way I think, but I'm not going to drain them for all their information if they're, above me. But, I think I get different perspectives as well, because different people do in different places. And ultimately, people only have one career in terms of what they do when they start working, when they stop working. So they're only going to have so many experiences, but different people, different things. I personally haven't told myself to a mentor for that very reason. And because, I kind of work at how I want you to be my mate. Not that you can't tell me the hard truth, but I want to be able to chat with you generally. You can only talk work for so long. I want to talk about the footy or how crazy your dog is when it runs around the house or something like that, or whatever it is. So I haven't really had too many mentors in that regard, but definitely got a few like that PE teacher back then. Mr. Bennett, if you're watching, I probably doubt it. He's probably having a good time teaching kids now. But I know Laurie at VALD is our CEO. It's great to bounce some things off from a different perspective, coming into sport from being a lawyer as well, and a couple of guys that I've spoken to a fair bit. But no real massive mentors. But that's just kind of my perspective on how I've looked at it in a way.
Yeah, I think there's so much good stuff in that. I think that lesson of detaching your self-worth from your sporting results on the weekend is a very good lesson learned very early on in life. Because, Ryan, you're probably similar to me. You'd rock up on a Monday at school after you just made 50 in the under-15s or whatever, you had to retire at 50.
Shoulders
and
high.
you're feeling so good about yourself.
Yeah.
And then any week that you get out for a duck, you just lay low.
You wouldn't want to go to school.
No, exactly right.
Yeah, I've been there so many times. Even if we can work too, if you have a bad session with coaching or something happens, then you kind of go, then you kick the cat for the next 3 days and you just kind of go, it's one bad session. The athletes probably won't remember it tomorrow. It's been huge, man. I still have to tell myself today, hey, that was bad. People make mistakes. You can't be perfect. And unfortunately, in sport, one of the bad parts is you're generally up early and up late, and that doesn't bode well for being 100% all the time. So it's going to happen. You just got to make sure you can kind of mitigate and just go, all right, hey, I messed up. Let's fix it from here.
Yeah. And I love your approach to finding mentors or people who can help you too, like having that sort of board of directors you can turn to for like different
team.
Exactly. Yeah, you got a team behind you.
Yeah.
Do you recall any specific advice from any one of them?
Oh, yeah, the PE teacher one's probably the best one there. I'm going to say, there's certain things I think it's probably been told enough over a certain period of time. Like when you're first, second year in, you probably get some bits of advice. You kind of go, that's good. I'm going to hold that forever. But then you get a couple of different ones along the way, and then you get a certain situation. You go, oh, that's right. That person said that, and you kind of like, oh yeah, that's okay. It's a really good one. I think, detaching your self-worth is important, and understanding what you're about, I think, is probably the best one. And one that I heard a lot early on at the Reds was just more hey, this is just, whilst this is important and people get paid off this, it's really, you're not going to do this forever. And the most important things are what's at home and, how you're living, your family, that kind of stuff, relationships. They're the ones that are going to be there for the rest of it. You might have 4 years in sport, you might have 30, you might have 50. It is what it is. But, if you go home and you're a terrible human, then that's not going to work. But I think they're probably the biggest two that have rung true to me. There's not too much more, I think, that I can really pull out every time and be confident and say, this is what I kind of live by.
Yeah. I think it's a good message to people out there who are thinking, I need a mentor or I need one person that I can always bounce off. Take a leaf out of Sam's book there and have sort of a few people that you can go to for a few different things. Doesn't need to be an official mentor. Have a bit of a team behind you.
And it's a big ask to expect one person to be the answer of all your questions. So.
Yeah, and it's one person as well. It's one person's opinion at the same time. Get a few there. Might be quite good. Sam, people work in sport for a variety of different reasons. They could love it. They got pushed into it. They just somehow found their way into it. Who knows? But keen to understand sort of why the sports industry for you.
Yeah, I think it's probably the classic. I went through primary school loving sport. Was reasonably okay at academics. Probably by the end of grade 10. I was probably trending towards, I probably should have gone the engineering route kind of thing with the maths, chem, physics kind of stuff. But I just found it just wasn't for me. The idea of, yes, they are very, very important jobs and they can be somewhat glamorous in some ways with the pay packets and whatnot. But I just saw it and I was like, that's not me. I don't want to be sitting there responding to emails every day and being on the work site. And I definitely, given my skills with tools, I was never going to be a tradie. I just would have been terrible, and the houses I built would have been absolutely terrible, so I couldn't put that on anyone. But no, sport was always my passion. I just love it. And the fact that you could get paid to be involved with a sports team, I just thought that's got to be it. Like that has to be what I'm going to do. And so that was pretty much from there. And then I was pretty fortunate in that regard. Like pretty much by grade 7, I kind of knew what I was doing. Like I had a grade 7 assignment about like what you want to be when you grow up. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm going to be a sports scientist. And I made up some salary range and put it like some nice border art around the side, which looked pretty cool back at the time. But yeah, and then I pretty much stuck to it throughout grade 10, 11, 12, and then where it was kind of going to be was probably the hard part. I probably started at like maybe sports biomech, possibly biomechanist, and then sports psych I talked about before. I was kind of like in that realm, and then I did my first semester at uni and just went, nah, that's probably not it. And then when I did my prac at the Reds, being exposed to a lot of the different subdisciplines of it, yeah, like I thought S&C did. Like that's where I want to be, because you do more sessions with the athletes than the coaches do. Like you're with them all the time. Like you become friends with them. Of course, you're there to coach them first, but you get to know them pretty well. And realistically, I think to silo all the your GPS stuff, your S&C, your physio, like that'd be wrong. It works together. And you get a pretty good glimpse of it all together as well. So I think, when that, I'm like, that's athletic performance coach is probably the best descriptor of it, I think, because it all fits together. Like you're all contributing to performance of the team or the individual. Like that's what you're going towards. And if it's not doing that way, then you're wasting your time. So that was pretty much it for me. And then, after seeing a lot of my other mates doing engineering and that kind of stuff and seeing them suffer through it and that kind of stuff, I'm like, hey, what did you do today? Oh, went to footy. It was pretty good. Like we won by 30. Like I couldn't argue. I'm like, no. Like it's worth the early mornings. It's worth the up late. It's worth the trauma of a loss. Because it's just so fun. Like it's genuinely great.
If you couldn't do what you love, what else do you think you'd be doing?
Oh, not building houses, tell you that much.
I fear if I was building a house too, to be honest.
My dad just told me, like, can you pass me that hammer? And I'm just like, I looked at it and just went, like, everything's a hammer. Like, I don't know what you mean. Like, no, not a spanner and a wrench, but, like, everything can hit things. Like, I don't know what you're on about.
Oh, God. We were meant for one thing.
Yeah.
Sport.
That's it.
Going to the footy.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. Sam, we love this question on the podcast. If you've listened to a few before, you may have heard it before, but we do love it. And that is, if you could leave a note on a table in a university library for a student to find, what would it say?
I think it's just say thanks and just be a good human. Because ultimately, like, you guys can see it every day. Like the job ads that go up all the time, and this is, I suppose, somewhat selfish to a degree, but you have to be in some ways. But everyone lists, we want a good person that fits in their team culture. Like, and whether that's lip service or not, like it could just be, or it could be genuine. Who knows? Yep. But I think no one remembers. Like people remember programs you give them, but they remember how you made them feel. And whilst you could be, a hard coach, but you made them, you're a good person, and you're genuinely, like, when you push them, that's fine, it's part of what you do. But if they remember you as a good person, then you made them feel good, and they got something out of that coach-player or coach relation, whatever it is. Like they'll go, oh yeah, cool, no, they're a good person, and they'll recommend them. Same thing for jobs as well. Like whilst I know myself, I wasn't the greatest. It took me a long time to pick stuff up. Like it took me a significant period of time. But I would hope I spoke to them and say, I still speak to them because they say, hey, like, you're a good guy, I could go for a drink with you, kind of thing. I think if you could remember that, particularly as a uni student, and say thanks for an opportunity, and there's going to be times where you say no, like I know I struggle for a bit with, like, hey, I've got to do everything. And then you can say, thanks, but no thanks. I appreciate the effort, kind of thing, and appreciate the opportunity. But if you're at very least a good person, you've ticked one box of the job application, and you can hold your head up and say, okay, cool. It came down to that person just being better at their job, which ultimately probably should be how we're picking people. Like, they're just better at what they do. Geez, all right, I got to aim up for that. But if they're picking it because they're a better person than me, like, all right, well, that's stuff we can do. Like, we can be on time. We can say thanks. We can be gracious. And I don't think that's very hard. And as well, and I think people too, like when you develop rapport with people, if they know you're a good person and you have their best interest at heart and you're genuinely a nice guy, they're going to listen to the hard information a bit better. And they're going to go, actually, they've told me that, or this has been said, I probably should go and do it. Whether they do it or not, different story. That's on them. But, they at least remember that when you're telling them the hard stuff, which has to happen occasionally as well. But I think if you can remember that as a uni student, it'll probably take you a fair way.
Love it. Just say thanks. You can't always control what happens to you, but you can always control how you respond.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, Sam, it's been great chatting, mate, and we really appreciate your time jumping on the podcast, just hearing about your job as a sports scientist. It's ultra interesting. I feel like I'd love to do what you do in another life. It's super cool, and just hearing about your journey to get to where you are. There goes my voice. Your journey to get to where you are, and then some of that advice at the end is just super helpful for our listeners. So thanks again for jumping on, mate, and all the best.
No, thanks, guys. Appreciate taking the time, and love what you guys are doing.
Awesome. Well, Ruse, what a great episode. Sam is an absolute jet. He knows his stuff. Great to hear. All the work that he's doing at VALD. Wow. Very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the big things I loved about Sam is that he has got this team behind him that he can get feedback off, that he can ask advice of, as opposed to having a single mentor. And it's, as we said, it's a lot of expectation to put on a single person to be your mentor for every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
And so I love Sam's approach of having certain people in certain areas that he turns to with specific questions, because he knows they are the best person for each of those areas. So I'm going to be looking to build out my team after getting inspiration from Sam.
It's a very cool concept. I think we should chat about it further offline. But one thing, I mean, it's very, very basic here, and I think everybody would love to be this, but what he said around is being a good human. To be honest, people are hiring people who are good people. And if you can do all those things right, be kind, say thank you, be grateful for opportunities as they come to you. That's what people are looking for. So just be a great human. Opportunities will come your way.
I loved his practical implication on how to do that. Just say thanks at any opportunity.
So good. But very easy advice. Just say thank you.
Yeah.
Jobs will come.
Absolutely. My final takeaway was aim to be a generalist. As he said, with the way that the sports industry is structured at the moment, you have to be able to work across multiple disciplines, because sporting organisations just haven't got the same funding that they used to provide a specialist in every single area. But the other thing that it helps you with too is just having an appreciation for different areas. So if you do have to work with a psychologist or a nutritionist or a strength and conditioning coach, whoever it might be, you've got an appreciation and can speak their language when you're trying to help these athletes. So aim to be a generalist.
Fantastic. Rubes, any other apps around the sports science space that you'd recommend?
Yeah, well, we touched on Steve Moore from the Carlton Football Club on how to be a strength and conditioning coach in an AFL club. He's episode 163. He's a phenomenal guest. I'd highly recommend listening to them.
Great episode.
Another one is Jacob Tober in episode 173. He is now building his own app that measures the velocity at which you lift weights, and also is the head strength and conditioning coach over at... where's the place that he works here?
VBT?
No, not VBT. Core Advantage. It's just escaped me for a second.
Great save there. You've done well.
He's over at Core Advantage. So 173 for Jacob. He was the poster boy of Deakin University when I arrived to study. So check out Jacob.
Yeah, the poster boy. You did well there. Your mind was ticking over. I could see you thinking. It's very good.
We got there.
Fantastic. Well, connect with us on LinkedIn. Plus, be sure to jump into the SportsGrad community. We'd love to chat with you on there. Head to our website at sportsgrad.com.au/community to join, or head to the link in our show notes. Also, if you love the show, we would love for you to rate the show 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcast. Subscribe on Apple or follow on Spotify. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.